Hi, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're having some yokai problems. I think we've got yokai in the system.
Oh my
We've had to
God.
restart the live stream a few times. This has never happened. So something mysterious is at work.
Blame the tanuki.
Yes, yes. So perfect for today's topic, of course. It's hot, hot summer. A perfect way to beat the summer heat in Japan is to tell scary stories. And talking about yokai is a perfect topic. So thank you so much for joining us, Hiroko and Matt.
Yes, I'm wearing yukata.
Gorgeous.
It is more comfortable clothes than casual than kimono. But it's strictly speaking, yukata should be worn in summer. In calendar time, it's fall. But in order to keep the spirits of summertime, to enjoy yokai and ghost, I wore yukata today.
Yeah, yokai are really a summer phenomenon. You know, in the West, ghosts and spooks and goblins are a fall. They're like a Halloween thing. But in Japan, it's summer.
And that's all about staying cool, right? If you feel scared, you feel cold. Is that right?
Yes. But the thing is, because of global warming, traditionally, and the Japanese summer, humid, hot, but humid. But now, because it's just hot, so it's very difficult for traditionally enjoy yokai and ghost stories. Like this year, this is actually the first time that I hit the air conditioning and I went to basement and then started reading ghost stories because it's just too hot and that's just so sad.
Well, we had a chance to meet Matt last time. Thank you so much. So, talking about Matt's new book, you, Hiroko, let's talk about
your based list. We wrote several books together, and let's just talk about the fun stuff.
Running Japan Alt Japan company. So you can find Hiroko and Matt on alt.com. Is that right?
Alt Japan.
15,000 pages of Doraemon manga for the ebook.
Yes.
And
It was pretty wild.
It was wild, but it was fun too because I grew up with it. I was the first manga that I read when I was a kid. I was first grade. My friend asked me, Hiroko, this is a really fun manga. And that was Doraemon.
Right.
And then so I had a lot of memory attached to it. And so because of that, it was a great honor to translate Matt and I into English.
And
I saw a video of you guys talking about how you translated certain expressions like sounds or onomatopoeia or something. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. And it's been really fun because that work has given us a kind of foundation to do stuff that we want to do that too, but stuff that we want to do, our own personal projects. And the yokai book, which Hiroko and I, Hiroko introduced me to yokai in the first place years back. So that's actually a fun story in and of itself. But the books kind of came out of that.
2005. I still remember that.
Wow.
I gave you one of the picture. He's young. Is sitting right next to Kappa.
Oh yeah.
Should I go through?
Yeah, continue. Yeah. No, it's true. But set it up. So we were driving. We were up north. We were
traveling in north Tohoku area. I was driving. He was sitting, and then all of a sudden I saw Tono, the town of Tono, on the navigation screen. And then I said, hey, because you like toys, Japanese toy robots, and then tokusatsu,
monsters,
kaiju, monsters. There's a thing called yokai, and then I bet you anything you will like it. And the Tono town, it's known for that. So let's go. And he didn't, of course, didn't have a choice because I'm holding a wheel. Anyway, so I went there, and then I took him to the shrine, and local shrine, and then normally, often you can see the two dogs kind of guard dogs on the side. But in that shrine, there's a kappa statue instead of guarding dog. And I'm pointing out that in its Matt, this is the most fundamental, famous yokai in Japan called kappa.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then the kappa is a human-like creature. It has and there's a disc on the head. It has a water, and then if they lose the water, they lose power. They love into the water, and then one of the favorite food is cucumber. And I just started going on and explaining it, and then he's like, "Oh man, that's really interesting."
Oh man.
So I'm showing the kappa page right now from your book.
Yes.
And you guys were also in a video where you were hunting kappa monsters in the subway in Tokyo, which I found many years ago.
It was pretty much the first book on being called in by like the mass. The Japanese media was really interested. They're like, because there's a subtitle, we deliberately put a Japanese subtitle on the cover, which is Gaikokujin no Tame no Yokai Survival Gaido, or Yokai Survival Guide for Foreigners, which Japanese people thought was really funny. And
because until the time hadn't been known
in English.
In English outside Japan, everybody knows it in Japan. My father is 87 years old right now, and if you ask yokai, even though he doesn't know the details, but he knows. It just from old to young, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows yokai. It's part of our culture, and it's fun too. But the until 2008, nobody knew.
Yeah.
Outside Japan, everything like car, game software like Final Fantasy, manga, anime, and all kind of stuff. All kind of stuff went out, but yokai still wasn't popular, even though the Japanese people enjoyed so much. And then I grew up with yokai, and I loved yokai, so I wanted to share it with the people in the world. But in order to do so, you needed to lower the threshold, kind of step, so that we can talk, about yokai. And then that's just Yokai Attack. And then after our book is out, and then the word yokai started being used. Yeah. But until then, yokai were explained like monsters, ghouls, demons,
even
and
ghosts.
Ghosts. Those are not in order to explain people, we have something, and the Yokai Attack was actually a tool from us, so that the people in the world can enjoy Japanese culture, which is yokai, like Amabiye you mentioned.
Yeah,
that's a great example.
So what was interesting to me in looking at your book is quite often the yokai has no specific gender, but the kappa is specifically male, and the Amibiye, we should talk about that next, is female, right?
That's the thing. Okay, let's talk about Amabiye. Okay, the Amabiye was shown. No, Amabiye was appeared on the Kawaraban, which is tabloid newspaper
from the Edo period.
Yeah, from Edo period. I even wrote it down, like 18.
Oh, you have notes. This is we're so prepared. We have notes.
And Amibiye, for people who don't know, was recently in the news because of the coronavirus. So this story is even though it's a very old story, it's very topical right now, right?
Yes. Yeah, the yokai are not really new thing. You can, the yokai are creatures, mythical creatures from Japanese folklore, and Amabiye is one of them. And so the Amabiye appeared in Kumamoto Prefecture, down south of Japan, ocean. It was really shiny.
In the 1850s.
1846. I looked that up. Anyway, I would say it because it's it.
Yeah, we really don't know.
We don't know because Amabiye didn't. I shouldn't say that. I didn't have to say that. Amabiye never said the female or man. It said there will be abundant harvest. That's what it said. And then if there's a plague, draw me
And share
and share with other people. That's it. So it didn't say I'm female, I am male, but also it didn't even say I'm gonna cure it. I'm gonna nothing. That's yokai right there.
Very vague.
But it's very vague. But but then there's people like, oh my gosh, it's like wow, I love it, and then it's good because there's a big room to play with.
Yeah.
So it's okay. A lot of people say it's she. It doesn't matter. It's just as long as you play with it and have fun with it, and then transform. Because even though the amabiye I was talking about it's not the correct answer. It's just only one example.
Yeah.
And if you trace back, there's more further than underneath.
But
And then so
it really reminds me of when I did the talk with Richard Grian about the dugong in Okinawa. And the dugong is kind of it's a real creature, but it's kind of a mythical creature. It has these folklore attachments. And
mermaid.
And the idea is that it comes up, it shows itself before a huge natural disaster. Is the idea. So it really reminded me of the amibiye in how it's kind of foreboding, or it's warning against mankind's bad choices to destroy the world, right? Like it's very interesting connection. I found that.
Yes. And then also it's interesting because I think one of the reasons and why amabiye became famous outside Japan, it's because it looks like a mermaid. So it's easy for I'm not. You should say that.
Well,
You're not Japanese. Anyway, in my opinion, probably it's just because it's close to mermaid, which is Western sort of.
Mm-hmm.
We have a mermaid thing in yokai too, but still the mermaid is famous in the West.
Yeah.
And then so it's easy to relate.
Yeah.
And then
and that's what the fishermen said about the dugong too, that they thought they looked like mermaids. Really interesting connection there.
The timeline here is that amabiye is from 1840. She's forgotten for 150 years, and then when the real plague hit in the form of COVID-19, Twitter people, one person in particular, kind of resurrected her and said, "Hey, I found this old yokai. She says share pictures of her when there's a plague. Here's my picture." And so it had that interactive aspect to it too. What's your take on amabiye? And so it became this kind of fan project.
That's awesome.
So it's
and
it's really cool.
Making modern relevance to traditional folklore. I love that. I also want to talk about the Kitsune Nine-Tail, because that is your Twitter handle, isn't it?
Yes. I love.
Here's one. Little nine-tailed fox. So this was sold as a toy in a vending machine on the street in Tokyo, which just goes to show you how popular this kind of imagery is. But anyway.
Nine-tail is the one of the story is a female story. It's a strong woman, but it's in a nasty way. But the number of the tail, the split tails, it basically shows you the power. And 9, okay, well then that's a lot of power. And so yes, that's.
And foxes are tricksters in Japanese folklore. They are
dangerous.
And Western folklore too, crazy like a fox, or foxy lady,
Foxy lady,
that Jimi Hendrix is singing about. That's kind of like some voodoo, magic on you, the woman is putting on you. And so it's interesting that all over the world, foxes have this kind of reputation, but in Japan particularly so.
And of course, you say the favorite food is deep fried tofu because kitsune udon or kitsune soba, right?
Yeah.
And the weakness is alcohol. Is that true for you as well?
Oh my God. Well, the weakness is alcohol. I didn't know that. But yes, that's true for me because I can't drink.
Maybe I married a fox.
Yeah, you might have.
But I love, one of the things I love about yokai culture is that kind of crossover between, there's a lot of food cross.
in a sushi bar, I mean, sushi restaurant, all the sushi name, all the name of the sushi are attached to the name of the fish, or any other ingredients, except cucumber roll. We don't call kyurimaki, we call it kappamaki. It's not kappa is rolling in the rice. It's
that would be scary.
Everybody knows the kappa, the yokai's favorite food is cucumber, and then somebody back in time being playful, and then they named the cucumber roll as kappamaki. And so, there you go.
It's just, yokai are really much a part of the fabric of life in Japan in a really real way. And it was, when we were writing those books, that was actually one of the big translation questions. How should we translate yokai? And I think the minute we made the decision not to translate it and keep it yokai is kind of when the books really came together. Like, this is not going to be a westernized version of this. We're going to introduce the West to what these stories that Hiroko grew up with are.
Yeah. And I'm sure you guys, and it needed so much research, right? Like, I have this picture up right now of you maybe in a library looking at old books of the yokai and stuff. How long did it take you to research Yokai Attack?
Well, you grew up with stories of the yokai, so Hiroko had like a pretty strong foundation as to the bare bones, so to speak. Maybe not drilled down to the specific,
and then also the target audience wasn't Japanese people; it was for people outside Japan, no yokai knowledge. So I had to carefully choose what kind of yokai introduce. I cannot introduce like really, the complicated background, the yokai. I cannot do that. It's just I need, we call it superstars, really famous ones, and then also I make sure to pick up the yokai that Japanese people know, not just yokai fan or like me, like my parents' age, or kids, the really general yokai and stuff, and
well, ones that people can relate to on some level, like this morning when I was in the bathroom, because one of yours lives in the bathroom.
The Akaname.
Yeah. And then when you wear a mask, because one of them wears a mask, Yeah, and I am showing the picture now. I think it's translated into Spanish. So you had your book translated into different languages. Is it Thai?
And Vietnamese.
Vietnamese just came out. We were so excited.
That's really exciting.
It's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned it's called Kuchisake Onna, slashed mouth woman. And then it's like Amabiya, actually, what happened when I was a kid, but without internet. the slashed mouth woman.
First say what she is.
Yeah, is a woman wearing a mask and wandering around outside, but then come up to you and then start having a conversation. And the first thing she said, "Am I pretty?" And then if you say yes, she so she removed the mask and say, "Am I still pretty?" But her mouth, it's totally slashed into here. And so it's a monster face. And then if you say yes again, even though you tremble in fear, but she will cut you and make your face like her. If you said no at the very beginning, you're not pretty, and then she will kill you anyway. That was anyway.
So you can't win. But this is very topical now because of course everybody is wearing masks.
Yes.
But back in time, it wasn't not many people wearing a mask. And then when I was a kid, elementary school, so this long time ago, 70s, okay, 70s and early 80s. Anyway, so that story spread out entire Japan, and then it created mass hysteria
among kids.
And then kids a lot of kids could not come home. There were some people, some kids and some parents, and called the cop and say, we saw Kuchisake Onna, and it got kind of huge mass hysteria. And anyway, I was
You were the target audience.
I was a target audience, but I didn't believe it at the same time. I didn't believe it, but I enjoyed it because every day we discussed it, how to survive if we encounter /mouth woman, and it was
classic
fun.
urban legend, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And until Amabie came around, she was pretty much the most recent yokai.
Just like that.
She was the most recent yokai and the most recent example of how yokai stories spread by word of mouth. And so Amabie is really interesting because not only is she from 1840, but she's also the most modern yokai because she's spread entirely digitally.
Right.
Yes.
Like, you know.
Thank you very much.
Yes. See, this is the thing. The Japanese language, you know, you can talk about these things without putting a gender on them. You can just use a kind of neutral descriptor without saying, you know, the specific gender. And so in Japanese, I don't know what people think it is, male or female, or they are, I guess we should
I'm just
say.
kidding.
But no, but seriously,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You can be much more vague in a kind of poetic way.
Yeah.
I have a cute story about the slashed mouth
sorry.
woman.
Okay.
So after the Yokai Attack came out, a couple of years later, I remember this kid I think he's a kid actor.
Yeah, he was a youth. Yeah, he was a young actor. Yeah.
Yeah, from Sweden or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, he just came up to Matt and he whispered it, in Tokyo. Okay, he whispered it. I saw slashed mouth woman, because it was this winter time, so everybody wore mask, and I saw it.
Yeah.
And then he said, it was so scared, but I like them. I like slashed mouth woman. And then so Matt said, oh, that's great, because that's a Hiroko's favorite yokai too. And he was so proud.
Yeah, he had read the book on the plane ride over, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'd been introduced to his parents, who he was with, obviously.
And that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do. You know, we wanted to bring something fun stuff to the world, and he actually is a great example. And that was a little present for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk about another one. Let's talk about nekomata.
Yes.
Oh, that's a fun one.
So the nekomata, it's a cat with forked tails. So you can explain.
Well,
Go
sure.
ahead.
Well, no, I just a neko. Like in Japan, there were a lot of superstitions around cats, and especially around cats and dead people. Like, it was believed that if a cat left back in time when somebody passed away, you would put their body in your house. You'd have a wake in your house, and you traditionally kept the cats away because this is a superstition. I don't know how many people actually believe this. If the cat jumped over the corpse, it would reanimate it, and they could kind of control it, like as a zombie type thing. And also there was a belief. There's numerous beliefs. There's also a belief that once cats reach a certain age, their tails split in two, just like a fox, and they acquire kind of supernatural powers. They can start to walk on their hind legs. They can talk, and do all sorts of things, for good and bad. And so cats have this kind of reputation in Japan.
Well, it's not in Japan, because you guys have cats have a nine lives.
Well,
lives?
sure.
It's just, it's a cat has black cat actually, got killed because
witch trials,
because it has there's some kind of a magical power or whatever, and negative things attached to it. So cat has something. So it's just a Japan thing. But there is a yokai related to cat. And then
that was actually one of the most interesting ones from Japandemonium Illustrated. So Japandemonium Illustrated is a book that we did more recently that's a translation of an old 240-year-old series of yokai encyclopedias. They're actually the original yokai encyclopedias from the Edo era. And when we were translating that book, the nekomata appears in it. And we were trying to figure out what the illustration meant. And Hiroko can take it from here.
So the there's a book image, Japandemonium Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book of yokai, but it's very old. Just like he said, it was published in 1776 when United States became United States.
Right, so it's old.
It's very old. we translate them.
And the book, there's an illustration and usually a description of what the yokai is. It's the first. It was published kind of as a parody of encyclopedias. Instead of containing wisdom, it contained this kind of folklore.
It's actually, though that book is one of the huge roots of yokai, and so it was very important for us, as you know, as a people who running a localization company, and also we established we published the YOKAI Attack. So and then we over the course of the time we did a lot of research, and then the Japanese language, written language, got changed so much.
Yes.
So it was that's such a difficult project for us. Anyway, so the artist, Edo artist, called Toriyama Sekien, and so it's a book of woodblock prints, and then of yokai.
Yeah, it really looks beautiful. There's also a picture of you guys at it looks like a cemetery. Is it connected?
Yes.
Sekien's grave.
Sekien's grave.
After writing the book, we went to visit.
Mr. Sekien.
He lived in Ueno. He actually lived in Ueno, and we literally went to the Diet Library and tracked down his address of his studio and went there and typed the last few lines of the book from right in front of it. It's a house. It's some normal person's house, and they must have thought, if they looked outside the window and saw people typing on a laptop on their street, they probably thought we were crazy. But it's in Ueno. It's a stone's throw from Ueno Station, and because that was
yes,
bustling area. It still is.
Anyway, so the Sekien's book was when the woodblock prints, the book published. That was epic moment, because before that, all the yokai are shown on the Japanese scrolls. So the scrolls, that means not many people can see them.
Yeah, it's only one of a kind.
It's one of a kind. Some artists they copy them to practice, but it's very difficult for people in general to see casually. But then the Sekien published this woodblock prints. It's an encyclopedia of yokai, and that was the first time he made it actually basically consumer product. And then it was major hit. And then so he created 12 volumes, and then that's what we translated. Anyway, so not only it's difficult, just explanations in Japanese, because it's all Japanese, but also everything he drew in the art, like there's Nekomat in here, it's meaning. There's no haphazard thing. There's no creations, nothing. Anyway, another thing he did amazing thing is that on the yokai, on the scrolls, no background. But the Sekien, just like here in the image, he gave background of each yokai. So, and because it's old, and there's a lot of the research books, but other stuff is missing. Anyway, so when we do the translation work, every day I'm staring each art. Why on earth Sekien drew this? Why here? Why that? I was just thinking, and I called it Sekien code. And then so the cat was interesting material too. There's 3 cats. There's 3 cats in there, and one cat is normal, and then one cat, the second cat is kind of transforming, practicing how to transform into something else. And then there's Nekomata, the yokai, teaching trickster, and that's yokai Nekomata, right? Okay. Well, but then background, there's a plant, and it's a hagi, a Japanese. I forgot the
clover.
Name. Japanese clover. Thank you. Japanese clover. Why? So I just start thinking, why on earth Sekien drew Japanese clover? it doesn't matter. It could be, the Japanese
Bamboo.
maples or bamboos or whatever. But for some reason, he chose Japanese clover. So I just kind of, randomly type in and started using. That's a beautiful 21st century. There's an internet. And so I typed in, and then I found out there's a city called Hagi, Japanese clover, Hagishi, Japanese clover city. And I thought, oh, okay. And then I just went to the website of the ward office, and then I found out there's an old story about cats. And then there's a back in time. It's like 500 or 600 years ago. It's like a midst of the battle kind of thing. Anyway, the cat. So the one samurai, the warrior, he loved the cat, but he had to die. And then the cat was he had to die, and then there's a grave, and then the cat was just stay there forever, and until the cat basically died, and in the end, with that, because he or she didn't eat or anything, it just stayed with the owner, and then
like
after
Sachiko, like the dog.
That's cool, yes.
Yeah, kind of
just like that, just like that.
But for cats.
Yeah, but for cats. Anyway, and then after that, even though the cat's not there, but people started hearing in the nighttime meowing in a graveyard, and then so I was like, hey, because it's such an old ghost story of cats, maybe. See, this is maybe, okay? It's an educational guess, but still, maybe there's a high chance that's the reasons and why he chose Japanese clover. And I gave you this is a mascot. They even have a mascot called Haginyan. But it's
those little jokes were just embedded all throughout that book. And I will admit, I was just like, okay, can we move on? Can we please move on? Hiroko was like, no, there's some meaning here.
Yes,
it was like the guy in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This means something.
Is this Hagi in Yamaguchi, famous for pottery? Is it the same place?
I think so. Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Let's all go here. And listen for meowing in the cemetery.
That is wild. Let's go to a new place. Let's talk about Kitaro. Is a kind of special one to you.
Okay, so I guess it's my personality thing too. I always liked ghost, yokai when I was a kid, even kindergarten level. So of course when the Kitaro, Gegege no Kitaro,
the
famous cartoon about the yokai, protagonist has some power to make a friend with yokai and everything.
He's half yokai himself.
Yeah, because your mom is a ghost.
Long story.
But anyway, I grew up with him. I mean, I don't care about the protagonist. It's like, oh, yokai, yes. And then, so that's why.
Well, it's kind of like, when I was a kid watching Star Wars, I was always much more interested in the weird alien characters than I was in the humans. Like that cantina scene and all of that. And Kitaro is kind of the same way, because Kitaro is always the same in every episode. But yes. He always is having run-ins with. He kind of acts as a go-between between humanity and yokai, the yokai world. So when people are being troubled by yokai, you can actually you can send a physical mail. There's like a yokai post box, a mailbox that you can mail to Kitaro and have him come and help you. That's the kind of conceit of the show.
But as I grew up, I learned that the animation is based on the artist Mr. Mizuki Shigeru, and until he drew yokai, the Kitaro series, the yokai was kind of forgotten, and
he rehabilitated it.
Yes, he brought them back, and then the kids like me, oh my god, oh yokai, that's so cool, and then it became he made actually the huge comeback for yokai.
Yeah, in fact, if you actually say to just an average Japanese person on the street, describe a yokai, they'll probably describe one of Mizuki's yokai from Kitaro. I mean, it's the ubiquitous, huge hit from the 60s even till now, and they keep remaking it. And there were even a couple live-action versions.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but still, the trick part is that if you don't know the yokai background, and it's easy for them to get confused. All the yokai characters in his animations are creation of Mizuki.
Yeah.
And copyrighted. And that's not true. The protagonist, Kitaro, yes, it's copyrighted. Okay. But that the yokai, especially that the enemies, they are
From folklore.
actually folklore. And then you can find them, even though they look kind of different, maybe the same, it doesn't matter, but you can find it in this 1776 the Japandemonium.
Yeah, that was the source. Actually, Kitaro is a lot like Shrek. Shrek is a fictional. Well, they're all fictional characters, but Shrek was created to kind of tie together all of these other folklore, like the Gingerbread Man or the Puss in Boots. Those weren't created for Shrek. It was just the main characters were to tie all of these different folklore characters and these folklore situations together. And Kitaro really pioneered that. By making Kitaro, he tied together, because yokai are from all over Japan. Why are they suddenly all together in this one series? It's because, Kitaro is kind of the glue that holds them together.
And it has become a big point of appeal to Totori, right? Like you can visit the characters when you're on the main street and everything. So there are certain yokai, maybe other areas as well, but definitely for Totori, I know a lot of people seek out these characters on the street and everything.
Yeah.
Yes, and then also the Jindaiji Temple, Chofu City.
Tokyo.
That's where he lived. And the studio was, and that was the picture. I was standing in a kimono and next to
Ratman.
Yeah, Ratman. That's Tokyo, and then there is a
Kitaro
tea house. And
you can go visit. And that's actually, I think, one of the great things, one of the kind of strengths of Japan is that that people are really willing to kind of blend fantasy and reality, and kind of work folklore into daily life. And there's all sorts of, it's not just true for folklore, it's true for now anime. Like anime fans come to visit the places that were inspired, the backdrops for their favorite cartoons. People can visit this place in Tokyo or go out to Totori and visit these kind of yokai places. And this kind of fantasy tourism is a really interesting aspect of how Japan has kind of used its traditions and kind of made them real in a way that brings them out of the pages of books and off TV screens.
I think so, and definitely, and especially when it's connected to traditional shrines or historical places, but also connected to yokai. Like here, you have Zashiki Warashi.
Yes, he's a really interesting one. So this is Tono.
No, that's not Tono. It's north.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I took you to Tono first for warm up.
Yes.
Anyway, because
get the timeline right. You gotta get the timeline.
No.
I understand.
Okay. Anyway, the Zasukiwarashi is in English the kid in the room.
That's the name.
That's the name. It's a yokai. Yokai in the north, Tohoku. Especially in Iwate, known in Iwate Prefecture. According to the folklore, legend, Zasukiwarashi appears in a traditional house called Magaria. There's a horse barn a stable inside a house because
it's so cold.
Because the area in Iwate Prefecture it's so cold, and then the horse is a important labor
workhorse.
Yeah, workhorse. So, but anyway, it's traditional housing. And then the kid appears in the very back end of Zasuki room where the guest stays. So, but it's a good yokai, sort of.
No,
because if you have Zasukiwarashi in your house, it gives you abundance of money, prosperity, huge money, rich. But Zasukiwarashi is not it's not a fairy, it's a yokai. So they can walk out. So if they walk out of the house, your whole money, fortune, go bye-bye. So that's that's what it is. Anyway, so there was ryokan, the inn, Japanese inn, and in northern part of Iwate Prefecture, and famous for Zasukiwarashi. And then a lot of famous people stay there, including Mizuki Shigeru, the animator for the manga artist for the Gegege no Kitaro we just talked about.
Because?
And hold on a second. And also the president of Honda, the Soichiro Honda, the guy, Honda guy, stay there too. Just because they wanted to see Zashiwarashi or feel Zashiwarashi so that they can have fortune.
He said to haunt there. It's like this place is famous because there's one room where the Zashiwarashi is always said to appear.
Okay.
Is that the room with all the dolls that I'm showing?
Yes.
People left them. People left them to try to tempt the Zashiwarashi to come out so they could see him.
So I told Matt, he's like, okay, we're going to stay there. But it was so difficult to make a reservations because, of course, everybody wanted to go. And then finally I made a reservation. That was October 2009, I think. And then I had to wait another year to go there. Anyway, and that was the photo that I took there. We spent a night, and those the animals. Oh, those are all offering. Those are all new, and
we slept in that room.
We slept in the room. Anyway, there's a little courtyard. There's a courtyard, and then there's a shrine, and that's the picture. That there is a story. It's the story related to their Zashiwarashi. And then they create a shrine, and then they venerate it there. And that's Kamemaro Jinja. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Anyway, so we were so excited. We stayed there, and then we spent one, and then we left. 3 days later, whole thing's burned down. It's gone.
We were, I think, the last people to ever take pictures in that room.
No.
And then video.
Yeah,
Video.
And video.
And it's really, it's just.
I'll have to put up the video sometime.
It's just, I got chills in the spine because when I got contacted from the people, the local people, they, it's the whole place is burning down, burning.
Burnt down.
No, it's burning.
Oh, it's still on fire.
Burning.
Yeah, right.
And then I was really stunned. And then I saw all the pictures that it's basically that the fire came out from the onsen bathroom area.
The
boiler room. So there's a propane gas, the
tanks, I guess.
Yeah, it just exploded, and I saw the huge two piers of fire and
pillars,
pillars into the air. They say like 12 or like 13 meters high. Entire place is gone, except shrine.
The shrine survived.
Shrine survived.
What?
Isn't that crazy? And we were there. Okay, there's a boiler room. There's a room. There's a Zashiwarashi room, and then the shrine is right there. And so, so 5 years later, I heard that inn reopened. They got money, donations, and everything. They got money. They opened, and so I quickly made reservations. And then basically a couple weeks after the opening day, we just went there, and then I saw the shrine, and then no burning. Nothing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't damaged at all. It was kind of.
But
strange.
I saw that all the burned down house. It remains.
So that's our yokai story.
That's our yokai
Yeah, and they let you come back after they rebuilt, so they don't blame you, which is nice.
No. It's funny, we're often asked, do we believe in yokai or whatever, and it's like, we're not like ghost hunters or anything like that. We hunt the traditions.
Yes.
We're interested in these folk beliefs and things like that. So like, I'm not somebody who sees UFOs or ghosts or monsters or anything like that. We look at it from a literary perspective. That being said, when we went and stayed there again in the middle of the night, that's the yokai.
Ignore it.
He's ringing the doorbell right now. So when we stayed there that night, in the middle of the night, I felt something run across my legs. There it is again. I felt something run across my legs. It was the craziest thing. I've never, ever felt anything like this before. And I like to think that was the Zashiwarashi.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's our story.
That is amazing. Well, let's switch to your next projects. Your photography, visiting shrines. What's happening next?
So I'd like to. It's my. I don't want to say dream because I wanted to make a dream come true. But anyway, I'd like to publish a book about Shinto. The reasons and why is there's several reasons. The time to time, the non-Japanese people come up and ask me, Hiroko, what is Shinto? And I thought that's a good question. There are so many people asking me, so that means there's a need for that. That's one. And then another one is that Japanese people come up to me, hey, I've been thinking a lot. And then you published Yokai, Ninja, Yurei, which are ghosts. And I think the next project should be Shinto. In a multiple, and I agree with too, because just like yokai and ninja and ghost, the Shinto are also the part of Japanese life, culture. It just, if you talk about Japanese culture, you can't ignore it, and that is very important. And then also, in Shinto, often translate kami as gods, but the word gods it's close, but don't capture everything, and then it creates a lot of misunderstanding. So I personally strongly believe, kami should be kami, just like yokai, ninja, or sushi, samurai, and so that's what I'm thinking right now. And then I have been traveling and then keep taking photos. I went to the culture places, and I have a full.
And don't be humble. You passed the Jinja Kinte.
Yes.
There's a Jinja certification test.
Shinto, Japanese Shinto culture certificate. Yes. And
Hiroko's past level 2.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 2003. So my idea, I've been just having an idea for a long time, but as you can imagine, I don't want to make it just religion book because that's academic part. I wanted to, just like our Attack series, we call it edutainment, education plus entertainment. When you have fun, but in the end you learn something, and that's tough, especially for Shinto. But that's what I've been thinking.
Yeah. So Hiroko's been doing like Mikomai dance, the kind of the shrine dancing, which is kind of key to understanding Shinto, and also learning
Dragon flute.
Dragon flute. Yes.
It's too bad you couldn't.
Yes, the manga.
It's too bad you couldn't bring out the flute and play now, but.
The dragon flute. Okay, well that's part of the gagaku music.
Traditional Japanese music.
Yes, the gagaku is a classical music. It started out in the since 7th century. Yeah, and they played in the imperial court. So you can imagine, very old. And in dragon flute, it's made of bamboo. And it's a very old instrument, and so it just I wanted to learn, feel the touch of the history, Japanese things, and then I learning it. The reasons on why I gave you this manga is just because the gagaku music it's written in the Tale of Genji, the first written novel in the world. And that manga is a manga based on a tale of Genji, and there's a scene. The protagonist, Hikaru Genji, he danced with gagaku music, and all women fell in love with him, and that's the manga, the scene, and then so the music actually you can play even today. That's fascinating, that fascinates me. And then so that I give you that, actually that's a music note, even though it's a Japanese character, katakana characters, that's music note for dragon flute. And then that title, it's Seigaiha, and that's what Hikaru Genji danced in a Tale of Genji. Isn't that fascinating? It's just very old, and then still you can play, and then that's so that's
Yeah, listening to music from 1,000 years ago, it's just really, and whenever she's practicing, I can hear it in the house, and it's very different from our
yeah.
modern,
It's
rhythms and tempos
some
and
of
things like that.
some of the music has, especially dragon flute, has a legends, and it's really interesting.
And I think you have a yokai sat right behind you while you're
Oh yes, the
practicing.
cat flute.
Yeah,
So that's our friend's cat. Hiroko, we were cat sitting.
only Matt and the cat listen my flute.
He's really a good audience.
He loved it.
Yes,
That
he
cat
loved
loved
it.
it. Yeah.
He loved it. He's not our cat. A friend cat. We did a cat sitting. But then around 8 o'clock, and I just did like 20 minutes, just a quick practice. And then I just did it every night. And then after a while, he started meowing. It's like, it's time for food.
It's funny,
It was
actually.
sweet.
That's
It
the
was
cat. That's the
sweet.
cat owned by the family of the editor of Yokai
Yokai
Attack. The editor of the book, and so we cat sit for him sometimes, and that cat really loved your flute.
Yes. There's another cat. Oh, the other cat just didn't care.
Yeah, and the other cat didn't like the flute, so it's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it goes.
Cats are individuals.
Yes.
They're not all alike.
No,
So
they're
is
not.
it Nekomata, that cat, you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I like to think so.
Let's talk about Tsuchigumo.
Tsuchigumo.
Oh, please.
Giant spiders, giant bugs. Actually, Tsuchigumo is a yokai that takes the form of like a humongous, like tarantula-like, or sometimes they look like giant crickets or giant grasshoppers even, but they're giant insects or arachnids that live out deep in the Japanese countryside, deep in valleys, and they're often portrayed as samurai going out in kind of like Lord of the Rings style to vanquish them. And it sounds really cool, like the plot to a video game or an anime or something like that. But in reality, when you start kind of unraveling the story, it becomes kind of sad, because it turns out that Tsuchigumo, which literally means dirt spider or earth spider, was an epithet that was used against non-Yamato people, like Ainu people, like the Aboriginal, the native Japanese who were here before the Yamato people, who are the dominant race in Japan now, arrived. And there was a period, of course, where once the imperial family was established, that they forced everybody to submit to imperial authority. We're talking thousands of years ago now. And those who did not submit, who just wanted to live on their own terms or whatever, were disparaged as, because they were living these kind of traditional lifestyles, more kind of in touch with nature and not in cities and not in towns and places like that. Like, oh, those are dirt spiders. And so over the years, and I'm sure many of those communities were basically samurai or warriors did go in there and wipe them out. And so that image has become conflated with yokai, these images of samurai going and conquering yokai. Well, they weren't yokai. They were actual people who just wanted to kind of live their own way. And actually, it's if you've ever seen the Studio Ghibli film, Princess Mononoke, the protagonist of that is actually, he's not called as such, but is actually a Tsuchigumo. It's a non-Yamato kind of native tribe living in Japan. And as Japanese industrial society starts encroaching on their lives, the boy goes out to kind of confront it. And so that's the kind of interplay and political backdrop that's behind this yokai and behind a lot of other yokai too. It's like there's very multi-layer going on here.
Yeah, it's a dehumanization.
Yeah, obviously.
It's obviously, and then it's still, you can see it today.
Yeah.
It's the same thing back then.
And you often see that behind other parts of Japanese culture, like in Shimane, Hiroshima area, you have Kagura, and Kagura's demon or dragon, or it looks like a yokai, a woman that changes into a devil. Those people say is historically talking about the invaders, the outsiders coming in, right? So that's really interesting that the yokai as well has historical
Yes.
discrimination connections in.
Yes.
This one does.
So
yeah.
if you dig deeper more, and actually you can visit many places, like shrine, for example, and then you see the memorial. It ties. It doesn't. What's the famous English saying? There's no smoke. There's no smoke. There's no fire.
Right.
I mean,
if
there's
smoke,
If
something.
there's smoke, there's fire, right?
So if there's a yokai, there's probably some deeper
It
reasons.
just doesn't
Right.
pop out.
And same
It's
thing
just
for
always-
shrines and things like that too. There's this polytheistic, animistic sort of backdrop to a lot of Japanese beliefs, even now, which is why you see at shrines like memorials to glasses or needles or knives. I remember when I was researching my most recent book, I found a memorial to abacuses, abakai. It's the tools that we use and that we're in contact with a lot often pick up kind of souls of their own. It's kind of part of Japanese folk tradition, and there's an entire species of yokai called tsukimogami, which are basically haunted or sentient objects, and there's a lot of scrolls of them kind of parading around.
Oh yeah, you have that. Yes.
Like you'll see musical instruments on there, or shoes, even something like shoes or hats or things like that. Everything can potentially harbor a spirit in it, and that's a very different worldview from the Western viewpoint, and that's the kind of thing I think Hiroko wants to get into with her new work.
Yeah, well, the tsukimogami are yokai.
Yokai.
The literally means product that age 99 years of age.
Yes.
And so back in time, well, I mean even today, but the people throwing stuff away after they use. I do. And so back in time, the people believed that the old tools turn into yokai, gain spirits and turn to yokai, and so they throw it away before they turn to yokai.
Haunted, yeah.
The haunted object. And so that's basically the one you have on this. That's a scroll. They're marching. They're angry. Angry.
Why did you throw us out?
Yeah, well, we serve.
Yeah.
For a long time, and why you throw them away?
They're kind of like recycling.
Yeah, motainai revenge, right? Like,
yes.
why?
Yes.
You need to reuse us. So I love, we've only got a minute or so left. I wanted to touch on the akaname because I thought there's so much historical relevance for the yokai that you introduce in the book, but there's also a lot of cultural relevance. So you talk about the akaname and how it's connected to the usual setup of a bathroom. And
Right.
I thought that was really interesting.
So akaname means filth liquor. And it's funny. It's a very minor yokai in Japan, but Westerners just seem to love it. They always, like in Japanese, they're always asking us, what are Westerners' favorite yokai? This always comes up and they're always shocked. So akaname is the filth liquor. It lives in bathrooms, but literal bathrooms, bathtub, not toilets.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing. Right? In the West, toilets and bathtubs are together. So when they think about this yokai, they're like, oh my God, there's a monster who licks toilets. Ew. It is gross, but it only licks out bathtubs.
And also, you got to remember, the yokai are old. So it's not really, I mean, the sake of, the people in outside the world that we use in a modern type of illustrations for that originally the akaname's habitat is the old bathhouse wood, sometimes
Like
it's
a
outside barrel. I mean, it's just no electricity. Or because its humidity is high, creepy crawlers in everywhere.
There's gotta be a toad in there, like bugs.
There's a great story about a Mizuki Shigeru, when he was a kid in Tottori Prefecture. I mean, God, the bathroom is so
Frightening.
Scary and frightening because a lot of creatures, you are having bath with nature kind of thing.
So it's easy to imagine people coming up with, like kind of a rural tradition of this crazy monster living in there. And we don't even know they only lick out dirty bathtubs. So it's kind of like, well, if you don't clean your bathtub, the akaname is going to come, that kind of thing. So there's kind of a moralistic aspect to it too. But I love the akaname. I think akaname is
basically, it's the same, because you use bathtub, I mean, back in time, maybe it's not every day, but still, it's a daily life thing.
Yeah.
So you better keep it clean, or your health
Will suffer.
will suffer. And then so that's the Akaname's role is just to make sure to hunt people, and so that the human can be healthy.
So please, everyone listening, go scrub out your bathtub today.
There's lots of good advice in Yokai Attack. Who would know, right? Thank you guys so much for
Thanks for
joining us
having us.
today. What excellent stories, and really excited about your next project. And
Thank you.
Can't wait for that. Is there a timeline on that?
I will I will set it up. Yes.
It's in the early gestational stages, so
Yeah,
we'll let everybody know when that starts moving ahead.
And if people want to catch up with your latest, are you doing any teasers on Instagram or anywhere online?
Just follow Hiroko's Twitter.
Twitter.
Hiroko's Twitter.
The seven-tail cat, right?
Nine-tailed fox is QB nine-tail. What is we should know this.
We should know this.
We should know this, but it's or you can follow Matt_Alt, and then you can definitely find her through that. Yes. Ask me, and I'll turn you on. But,
I'll put a link below. Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining. Thank you. Kevin says this is fascinating topic. I love this stuff. Paul says this is very interesting. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody take care. Have a great weekend. And we're back with a full week of talks next week. So please join us again. Thank you so much, Matt and Hiroko. Thank you.
See you.
Bye.